Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with random reviews from the Overflow room. And today, oh my, we have Giacinto Scelsi, because we're working through the S's, and we're on SC. Oh my God, it means we're going to get through the S's sometime in this lifetime. It's amazing. Now, Scelsi was really quite a character. He was completely nuts. He lived from 1905 to 1988, and he wrote essentially a pile of piano works, and then he had a nervous breakdown, and he supposedly recovered, I use the term advisedly, from his nervous breakdown by sitting around at the piano and hitting one note over and over and over and over and over and over again, and listening for the inner meaning of the one note. As a result of that, he started writing avant-garde pieces for all kinds of ensembles, focusing on one note at a time. And he would take that note and he would play it in a zillion different ways, depending on what the sort of forces at his disposal were. And then he wrote orchestral music and chamber music and a whole body of music based on this one note stuff, where you take a note, you'd deviate by a quarter tone, or you'd trill it, or vibrato it, or do all these other things. And the result of that was an epochal orchestral work. I have the score here. There it is. 4 pieces on one note. And everything else he wrote was based on the one note. And this is for orchestra. No one ever plays it, and it's understandable because it only lasts 13 minutes in 4 movements, and it's written for an extremely bizarre ensemble consisting of, 1 flute in G, 1 oboe, 1 English horn, 2 clarinets in B flat, 1 bass clarinet, 1 bassoon, 4 horns, 1 alto saxophone, 1 tenor saxophone, 3 trumpets, 2 trombones, a bass tuba, a musical saw or flexitone, timpani, 2 bongos and 1 tumba, hanging cymbal, small tam-tam, large tam-tam, with various sticks, 2 violas, 2 cellos, and 1 double bass. Interestingly enough, he indicates for the strings that everything should be played with wide vibrato, halfway between ordinary vibrato and a trill. Without this indication, everything is played non-vibrato, because he's dealing with tiny fluctuations in pitch from the note in question. And it's actually a very cool piece. I mean, it's fun to listen to because it's based on one note. It's not like it's hard. It's kind of spooky and terrifying and fascinating. And a lot of this was based on a sort of Eastern Nirvana type, yoga sort of thing later in life. And I have a whole bunch of Scelsi things here that we can talk about. So first these are on Kairos, the label Kairos. And we have his string quartet number 4 from 1964, something called Elohim, his duo for violin and cello, Anagamon, the Macnongan, and Natura Renovator. Well, at least we know what that means, right? Revive nature. And so we've got Klangforum Wien is doing this with, it's for string quartet and things like that. And Klangforum people are doing Klangforum things under Hans Zender. I find his music fascinating. I really do. I know I talk about it in a flippant way. That's because of the kind of guy I am. But he was an interesting and very serious composer, because you can't spend your life banging on one note of a piano for days on end and not be terribly serious. So then we have this disc on Kairos too. Let's see who's doing with Hans Zender and Klangforum Wien, with Yameon, forget what these things are called, for bass, voice, and 5 instruments, and Anahit, lyric poem, under the name of Venus for solo violin and 18 instruments, and I Presagi for 10 instruments, Tre Pezzi for soprano saxophone, and Iconagon for harp, tam-tam, and contrabass. Oh, I already love it, just hearing about it. Isn't it wonderful? Then we've got piano works Volume 1. I don't know how many of these things actually came out. Some of them are upstairs and some of them are down here. So they're mixed up. But this is what we have in the Overflow room. He wrote, like I said, a bunch of piano works. So we have his piano sonatas, and they were largely in a free atonal style for the most part. Piano sonatas 1 and 4, and his suite number 9, subtitled Ttai, whatever that is, Calmo, Senza Espressione. And these are things just like a bunch of movements. You know, like I said, I like this stuff. I mean, they're kind of fun to listen to, even when they're like, you know, harmonically difficult. They're interesting. He was an interesting character. Then we've got Orchestral Works, Volumes 1 and 2, conducted by Juan Pablo Izquierdo, with the Carnegie Mellon Philharmonic and Concert Choir, because he has voices in a lot of these pieces. Not that they sing like normal things, of course, but they do sing. Let's see. So here we have hymnos for organ and 2 orchestras. These are on the Mode label, by the way, the piano thing and this stuff. Mode, the piano thing was, who was playing? Oh, Louise Bessette, sorry, on Mode. There we go. That's better. My apologies. Orchestral Works 1, with those people. Hymnos for organ and 2 orchestras. Her Qualia for large orchestra. Conks, Pax. That's 3 movements where the choir only says either conks, or pax, I think, and depending on the movement, for large orchestra and choir. And the Canti del Capricorno, selections for voice with and without instruments. And the voice is who? Pauline Vaillancourt, soprano, and Douglas Allstedt, tenor. Then we have Orchestral Works Volume 2 with the Vienna Radio Symphony Orchestra under Peter Rundell. This is again on Mode. Yes, they have the whole Scelsi edition. See, that's Volume 2. This is Volume 6. The 4 pieces that we just talked about. Yay! That I actually have the score to. And Uaxutum. Oh, this is fun. The legend of the Mayan city, which they themselves destroyed for religious reasons. And it only took them 21 minutes. And in order to destroy the city, they used an old Martineau, 7 percussionists, a timpanist, chorus, and 23 musicians. All that to destroy a city. And then the Nascita del Verbo, the birth of the word, for chorus and large orchestra. So there's that. I mean, doesn't all this sound interesting? I mean, you should hear some of his stuff. You really should. And here we have, what's this thing? The Munich Kammer Orchestra, the chamber orchestra, under Christoph Poppen on ECM. And we have Ahoy, matey, no, Ahoy, and Ave Maria, and Anagamen, and Yggur. I mean, how do you pronounce this? Yghur. I ask you, why even call it anything? Just call it and you're just as far ahead. And then Natura Renovator again, and Alleluia, with Francis Marie Wheaty, violoncello solo, and those other people. Okay, so we have this nifty little Scelsi thing. And this is the set that you really should try and get your hands on if you can still find it. It's on Acchord, which is owned by Universal. This is the complete works for chorus and orchestra, or just works for chorus and orchestra. It's not complete, but it's close enough. 3 discs, 3 short discs, because these pieces aren't terribly long. And it's got all the pieces, well, most of them we've talked about, but there's Ion, which is wonderful, and Pfhat, Pfhat, and Conks Pax, which we talked about, and the 4 pieces, which we also talked about, and Anahit, which the dedication to Venus thing, and Uaxutum, which is the destruction of the Mayan city, and Herqualia, and Hymnos, and Chukrum. When was the last time you heard Chukrum? So yeah, this is the thing to get. It's with Jörg Wittenbach and the Orchestra de la Radio Television Polonaise de Krakow. Okay, the Krakow Orchestra Radio and the Krakow Radio and Television Orchestra, Polish. I mean, you translate it all. It's the Krakow TV and Radio Symphony Orchestra under Jörg Wittenbach, and it's really cool. And the Polish players are very good at this stuff because, they do like Penderecki and those guys who wrote actually some very similar pieces based on density and texture and avant-garde playing techniques and whatnot. So this is really good. That's worth having. I have a couple of those because that's like my extra one. And then we have the Arditi String Quartet with percussion and horn and soprano doing music for string quartet and other strings. And this is on Harmonia Mundi, of all things, 2 discs. And you get, let's see, his string quartet number 1 from 1944, before the one-note stuff happened. His string trio, which is after, or right around the time the one-note stuff was happening. The second string quartet, which is after the one-note stuff was happening. And then something called Khum, K-H-O-O-M, maybe you pronounce it Khum, who knows, for soprano, and it's 6 instruments. And then the 3rd, 4th, and 5th string quartets, which all came quite a bit later and get shorter and shorter and shorter. The first quartet's 31 minutes, the second is 17, the third is 18, and then the fourth is 9 minutes, and the fifth is 6 minutes, as his music begins to evaporate entirely. So that, my friends, is Giacinto Scelsi, a very, very interesting character, worth getting to know if you like sort of avant-garde, interesting music that's terribly personal, not hard to listen to, but expressively very mysterious and powerful and nifty. And I thought it's really kind of fun. And you may too. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.